Hey there, how you doing? It's a beautiful, as you can see, a beautiful evening here on Lake Wentworth in Wolfboro, New Hampshire. Although the wind did just come up, and I have my dog Wade sitting here, and I think it was 2 Facebook Lives ago, he snuck off to the trail while I was doing a Facebook Live, and I have this tracker on him, so I had to go track him down. So, Biden's whistleblowers, and what does it mean for Trump? And, let me just start by saying, I get this feeling that the politics in this country are spinning out of control. More and more they're spinning out of control. And it's, everything from this hearing we saw yesterday with these whistleblowers, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. But you look at that, you look at Biden, who is clearly, somewhat, and he's an old guy, and you wonder what his capacity is at this point, and the things he says and how he behaves, and he looks old, and the other day when he was meeting with the president of Israel, and he was kind of reading the note card, mumbling, you couldn't even understand, yet everybody on the left defends him. You take that, you take Trump, and all the stuff that's going on with Trump, the indictments, and it looks like another indictment's coming, and here's something about Trump that you may not have noticed, but in the civil trial, the E. Jean Carroll civil trial, and he was found liable for sexual assault and defamation, and he was not found liable for rape. So his lawyers filed a motion to say, hey, the amount of damages which was awarded was $5 million ought to be reduced. And part of the reasoning his lawyers gave for that was, he wasn't found liable for rape. Well, the judge ruled on that the damages were not going to be reduced, but also in the judge's opinion, the judge basically said, hey, the legal definition under New York law is very narrow, but based on common use of the word rape and the evidence in this trial, you in fact did rape her. That's what the judge said in response to that motion, and you probably won't hear much about that. Maybe you will. And then, of course, Trump had been bragging about, he was found innocent of rape. At any rate, all the stuff around Trump spinning out of control, the indictments, just as people on the left defend Biden, we got people on the right defending Trump despite all this. So what happens here? Hunter Biden's been under investigation now for 5 years, for income tax evasion and other things, the gun violation, and I think there were other things too. We may not never know now, but and then we heard publicly that the prosecutor, this David Weiss, cut a deal with him where he would plead guilty to a couple misdemeanors. So then you had these 2 whistleblowers from the IRS come forward, and they testified in front of Congress yesterday. One guy named Ziegler, and one guy named Shapley. And I watched some of that. I watched the beginning because that's usually when the best information is. I watched an hour or 2 or maybe even longer of it. And the first thing you do in that situation, when you got people testifying anywhere, whether it's in front of Congress, in a court, or even when you're talking to people across the table, is you want to assess their credibility. And and what, are they biased in some way? And in this case, you're wondering, are they biased against Joe Biden? Are they credible? Do they know what they're talking about? Are they subject matter experts? Just checking on the dog. So you assess all that. Are they informed? Did they do the work? And I would say, from watching these two guys, they're very credible, extremely credible, and the fundamentals of their complaint are that Hunter Biden's failure to pay taxes, going as far back as 2014, and the amount of taxes he failed to pay, met all the criteria that the IRS and the Justice Department have for a felony. And that, during the investigation, these two and these two guys were IRS investigators, IRS criminal investigators of very sophisticated international financial transactions. And remember, a lot of this money, I think most of this money came from overseas. And so they were, saying the evidence in their view was compelling that Hunter Biden committed many felonies, and that they felt like during the course of the investigation that the Justice Department, the FBI, were not allowing them to do the kind of investigation that they typically do, including interviewing witnesses. I guess they wanted to interview 12 witnesses, and they were only allowed to interview one. They weren't allowed to interview Hunter Biden. So their hands were tied in this, and that David Weiss, the U.S. attorney from Delaware, who said publicly he was given, authority by Merrick Garland to do whatever he wanted to do in this investigation, said at a meeting, I think it was in October of 2022, that in fact he did not have that authority. And then Merrick Garland testified in front of Congress thereafter that he did have that authority. And that, the sort of the on-the-ground prosecutors agreed with the whistleblowers, Shapley and Ziegler, that in fact Hunter Biden ought to be prosecuted for felonies. But somewhere up the chain of command, presumably this David Weiss guy, they put a kibosh on that, and no felony. And Ziegler and Shapley felt that all this was so unusual, given their experience over decades. Each of them had over a decade of experience, that they had not experienced this kind of limitations and judgments on cases. So that's why they became whistleblowers. Very credible. These guys were very, very credible. And I've dealt with people in the federal government, bureaucrats at various levels, who are very committed to their jobs, very committed to their areas of expertise, very committed to upholding the law, and are very passionate about that. There are people like that in our government. There's no question about it. And these two gentlemen are that way. They really, really, really care about going after tax cheats, and Hunter Biden was a tax cheat, and they don't allow, you know, their biases to affect their judgments very much. I think it's impossible to entirely eliminate your biases. These folks are real believers, and in fact, Ziegler said, he said this at the hearing, that he's gay, he has a husband, he's a supporter of the LGBTQ community, he's a Democrat, and because he became a whistleblower, he was being criticized for going after Hunter Biden by the LGBTQ plus community, which is this point of, no matter what happens, the way our politics are now is, hey, doesn't matter what Hunter Biden did, you can't go after him. But this guy is committed. This Ziegler guy is committed, and you know, and I thought he was very credible. I thought they were both very credible, and you know, and we saw during the hearing, you know, the Democrats, you know, quite frankly, trying to attack their credibility and to undermine what they were saying, and basically defending Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. You know, and the Republicans were being aggressive, of course. You know, and one of the feelings I got from this is, you know, and you know, part of their testimony is based on the documents that they had reviewed, is that there was a total of $17.3 million that was funneled through various entities that ended up with Hunter Biden and out to other members of the Biden family from Ukraine, Romania, and China. $17.3 million, going the whole way back to 2014. So during the time when Joe Biden was vice president, and you know, what he wasn't selling any goods. So what services was he providing? And we all know it was just influence peddling and selling access. You know, and one of the things that, you know, you can expect the Democrats to try to downplay this in these hearings, but I mean, I didn't hear one Democrat say, you know, this is corrupt. You know, for the guy not to pay his taxes is corrupt. For the guy to get paid all this money from these foreign sources for what appears to be providing services that can only credibly be connected to selling influence to Biden is corrupt. And that's unacceptable. May not be criminal, the Democrats would have said, but it's certainly corrupt. And there was just no outrage from the left on this. And it's part of the reason that I say it feels like to me that our politics are just spinning out of control. That you know, we have this stuff going on. This 50, I don't know, Hunter Biden's early 50s-year-old son of now the sitting president, who evaded taxes, didn't pay taxes, took illegal write-offs, took write-offs for paying his kids' tuition to college, which you can't do, took write-offs for paying prostitutes, which you can't do, you know, getting all this money from these foreign sources, which, if not criminal, certainly looks really corrupt. And you know, and there's no outrage. There's no one on the left saying this is awful, and it's got to stop. and instead they attacked these very credible witnesses and whistleblowers and defended the whole situation. And some of them wanted to talk about racism, and many of them wanted to talk about Donald Trump. And so they brought Trump into the hearing as much as they could, and the Republicans were saying double standard, two-tier system of government, and all that stuff. Which kind of, to segue into what does this mean for Trump, this whole idea of a double standard and a two-tier system of government, to me, are the Republicans saying that Trump is guilty, and that's the standard that he's being held to. So therefore, if you don't hold Biden and Hunter Biden to a criminal guilty standard, that's a double. So is it an admission that in fact Trump is guilty of some crime? So I think the system's corrupt. There's no question. The level of corruption, I think, depends on the individuals and so forth. But I don't, plus, all facts aren't the same. All motivations aren't the same. All intent is not the same. But so I just think this argument, if you think about it, when the Republicans say double standard, two-tier system, one for Trump, one for everybody else, one for Republicans, one for everyone else, is that an admission that Trump's guilty or something? I don't know. I mean, so the other thing about what this means for Trump, in my opinion, is I mentioned about how these two whistleblowers were very, very credible. And they are two bureaucrats who are passionate about their job in the IRS, if you can believe that, of tracking down criminals who are committing crimes through the international financial system to launder money and not pay taxes. They are, and they're dedicated to that. They're hardworking. They know the subject matter. They're smart. And they're gonna pursue targets of investigation to the fullest extent of the law, and they're doing it without bias, without influence from politics. That's the kind of people these two whistleblowers are. And how this relates to Trump is, I believe that the special counsel in Trump's case, Jack Smith, is that kind of person. I think Jack Smith is very passionate and dedicated to being a prosecutor who prosecutes crimes to the fullest extent of the law, and is very good at it and very aggressive with it. And I believe that Jack Smith, I'm not going to say he's unbiased. I think there's some bias there. There's some politics there. But he's not one of these people who's a political hack. He is a passionate, true believer in his role as a prosecutor who goes after criminals to the fullest extent of the law. And he's been cut loose on Donald Trump. And that is not good for Donald Trump, as we are seeing. So I think, when you hear from the right, I talk about how the left is defending Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. Well, we see on the right, people defending Trump and not calling out Trump's behaviors and actions. And I know some people say this is all made up. This is, all a plot. And listen, if you believe that, I mean, do some reading, you know. And there are Trump supporters out there that way. I did a Facebook Live a couple weeks ago and said, hey, Trump supporters, are you going to follow him blindly, or are you going to be informed so you can make an informed decision? The number of awful comments from Trump supporters that I received just for saying that is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Of course, they call me Rhino, which is why, as you know, I've come up with my new acronym. Activist in name only, usually stupid. Activist in name only, usually stupid. AINOUS, anus. So there's some on the left, there's some on the right. But you know, so I get this feeling we're spinning out of control. You read the indictment that Jack Smith filed in the documents case. It's very specific. You know, Trump supporters, you know, Trump people who work for Trump, you know, cited in there. It's now, of course, you know, you got to see the evidence, but, you know, a prosecutor like Jack Smith isn't going to put that stuff in an indictment unless the grand jury has seen it and it's credible evidence. You know, and so, you know, I guess the fact that there's so many people on the right who support Trump no matter what, no matter how bad of stuff that he does. And there's people on the left that are going to support Joe Biden no matter how many times he stumbles, no matter how many gaffes he makes, like saying publicly that we're running out of ammunition because of the Ukraine war. I mean, presidents shouldn't be saying that stuff. And you know, and I believe in loyalty. I believe in fighting for Republicans, fighting for conservatives. You know, and I believe that, you know, people make mistakes, and you know, and as long as they recognize they've made a mistake and they're moving on, still support them. But when you have these situations like we have with Biden and Trump, where, you know, the things that they have done are so obvious and people still support them, it makes me feel like our politics are spinning out of control. I mean, it's you know, and here's another little thing about Trump, because one of the comments that I got after my Facebook Live about, are you going to become informed about Trump, or are you going to be a blind follower? One of the comments I got, I can't believe you're doing this. Trump endorsed you in 2020, and loyalty is a big thing to Donald Trump. And I had to chuckle. And the reason I had to chuckle is, yes, Trump says that, but Trump is not loyal to anybody. He will throw anybody under the bus if it's to his benefit. For example, something you haven't heard about. Earlier this week, the 16 Republicans in Michigan that signed the form that they were electors for Michigan, the so-called fake elector Republican scheme that Trump and Giuliani and Eastman came up with, they were indicted in the state of Michigan this week, all 16 of them, by the state attorney general for fraud. They signed this thing and sent it to D.C. Did Trump come out and defend them? Where's Trump's loyalty to them? Nothing from Trump, because it's not to Trump's benefit to come out and support him, because you Trump supporters out there probably don't even know it happened. You know, so he's not going to do anything to support those people. So, I mean, the bottom line with this is the whistleblowers are Ziegler and Shapley are serious about their jobs. They're passionate about their jobs. and I believe them, and they're very credible. And Donald Trump and Jack Smith has a prosecutor who's a bulldog, who's really, really good, and believes that his role in life is to put criminals in jail. And he's going to do everything he can legally do, to try to do that to Donald Trump. And that does not bode well for Donald Trump. And I know Donald Trump calls them names and all that. And I think a guy like Jack Smith, that stuff doesn't bother him. I'm sure he's been called worse as a prosecutor. So there you have it for tonight. Have a great weekend. Enjoy this nice weather. We've had 2 nice days after all the rain we've had. And take care, and God bless you.